It started like a calm morning that suddenly turned into a political storm. For days, Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State had been making headlines with his sharp remarks. He said Peter Obi's influence in Anambra politics was overrated. He even hinted that Obi's performance as governor years ago was nothing special. Those words didn't sit well with many people. Supporters of Peter Obi flooded social media, defending him, praising his record, and reminding Soludo how much progress Anambra made during Obi's time. Some called Soludo ungrateful, others said he was trying to discredit Obi for political gain. But Peter Obi stayed calm. He didn't rush to reply. He watched. He listened. He let the noise settle. He continued his usual calm lifestyle, traveling across the country, attending events, and speaking on leadership and governance. But deep down, everyone knew that a response would come. Obi was too experienced to be silent forever. Then one day, the moment came. It happened at a leadership and governance event in Awaka, where Peter Obi was invited to give a keynote speech. The crowd was calm, waiting. The hall was filled with students, business leaders, journalists, and politicians. Everyone wanted to hear what he had to say, especially after the tension that had been building. As Obi walked to the podium, there was a quiet excitement in the air. People leaned forward. Phones were ready. Cameras focused on him. He smiled briefly, adjusted his microphone, and looked around the hall. His tone was calm, but his expression carried a serious message. He began by thanking the organizers, talking briefly about leadership, honesty, and the importance of service. But then, slowly, he turned the conversation to the controversy that had been making rounds. He said, "I have seen and heard what my brother, Governor Soludo, said about me. But let me make something clear, in this game of politics, we are not mates." The hall went silent. You could hear people whispering. Some looked at each other, surprised by the directness of his words. Obi didn't stop there. He continued, "When I was in office, I didn't waste time attacking those before or after me. I focused on service, results, and integrity. I left billions in Anambra's account. I didn't leave debt. That's leadership." There was loud applause. Some people even stood up, cheering. Cameras flashed, reporters typed quickly, and social media was about to explode. Obi's voice grew firmer. "This is not about bragging," he said. "It's about truth. When people begin to rewrite history for political reasons, it's dangerous. We can disagree, but we must stay honest." He didn't insult Soludo. He didn't raise his voice. But every word landed with force. There was weight in his calmness. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had walked the path and had nothing to prove. He added, "When I was governor, I worked for the people, not for headlines. I served with transparency. If anyone doubts it, let them go and check the records. The facts are there." At that point, the crowd erupted again. It wasn't the noise of a campaign rally, it was the applause of respect. Everyone in the hall could feel that Obi wasn't speaking out of anger. He was setting the record straight, calmly, directly, and with class. After the applause died down, Obi paused and looked at the audience. He said softly, "My brother Soludo is doing his best. I pray for him to succeed. But it is not right to pull down those who came before you, simply to make yourself look taller. That's not leadership. Leadership is about building on what others have done and making things better." The hall was quiet again. You could feel the tension and admiration mixed together. Some people nodded in agreement, others whispered to their friends. But one thing was clear, Peter Obi had spoken his mind without losing his composure. That moment spread like wildfire. Within minutes, clips of his statement flooded social media. Peter Obi replies Soludo. Obi says we're not mates in politics. Obi sets the record straight. Every news platform picked it up. Analysts began to discuss what he meant. Some said he was putting Soludo in his place. Others said it was a reminder that political experience and integrity cannot be compared with theory and pride. But for Obi, It wasn't about competition. It was about truth. His short but powerful speech reminded everyone that leadership isn't about who talks the most or who controls the media. It's about who left a record that can stand the test of time. Even after the event ended, people couldn't stop talking about it. Videos of his statement kept circulating. Hashtags trended across platforms. Some called it the most mature political response of the year. Others said it showed why Peter Obi continues to gain respect both in Nigeria and abroad. As he left the venue, people followed him outside, still cheering, trying to take pictures. But Obi simply smiled, waved politely, and entered his car. No long speeches, no argument. Just quiet confidence. That single moment changed the conversation. It wasn't just a political reply, it was a statement of values. It showed that you can correct lies without insults, that you can defend your record without arrogance. And in that calm but firm voice, Peter Obi reminded Nigeria that leadership is about truth, not noise. He didn't need to prove anything, his record already spoke for him. And by the time the sun set that evening, one thing was certain: the political temperature in Anambra had shifted. Soludo had thrown the first spark, but Obi's calm fire had taken over the entire conversation. It was no longer just a war of words, it was a lesson in class, maturity, and leadership. After that speech, the atmosphere across Anambra became calm but thoughtful. Many people began to reflect on the meaning behind Peter Obi's words. His statement, "We are not mates in politics," was not just a reaction. It was a message with layers of wisdom, discipline, and deep political understanding. Peter Obi was not a man who spoke carelessly. Every word he said carried intention. Those who had followed his journey in politics knew he had never been one to engage in public quarrels or verbal attacks. He believed that a leader's strength was shown in how he managed his emotions and handled criticism. That day, his words revealed that he had heard every remark made about him, but he had chosen his moment carefully before replying. In an interview days later, he was asked about the meaning of his statement. He spoke in his usual calm and measured tone. He said, "I respect Governor Soludo as my brother and as a fellow Igbo man. But I will always speak the truth. Politics should not be about dragging others down. It should be about service, performance, and integrity. When I said we are not mates, I meant that our approaches and principles are not the same." His tone was not proud. It was honest. He continued, "I have served before. I have been tested in leadership. When I left office, I left behind a record that can be verified. I did not come into politics to make money or to play games. I came to serve. And anyone who wants to challenge that should look at the facts." His statement drew attention not because it was harsh, but because it was precise. It was a reminder that leadership should be defined by what one has done, not what one says. Peter Obi had faced political storms before, but his calmness always stood out. Even those who disagreed with his political views could not deny his discipline and consistency. He often said, "A leader must have character. Without character, you cannot have trust. And without trust, you cannot govern successfully." Those words became his principle. Throughout his time in office, he demonstrated that by cutting unnecessary spending, prioritizing education, and insisting on transparency in every decision. So when he spoke about not being mates in politics, it was not about pride or competition. It was about difference in leadership style. For Obi, politics was a sacred duty, a place to serve and uplift people, not a platform for showing superiority or settling personal scores. Many political observers described his response as mature and measured. They noted that while some politicians might have used the opportunity to throw insults or make fiery statements, Obi chose a higher road. His response reminded people that a leader's greatest weapon is not his voice, but his record. In his next public address, he clarified further. He said, "It is not about who talks the loudest. It is about who has the facts. When I served as governor, I did what I could with the resources available. I never claimed to be perfect, but I made sure that every decision I took was for the good of the people. That is the kind of leadership we should all aim for." Those listening could feel that his message went beyond his disagreement with Soludo. It was directed to the entire political class, a call for honesty and humility in governance. He reminded his audience that leadership is not a competition for fame but a mission to create impact. His composure during the whole situation also spoke volumes. Even when some tried to provoke him into further response, he maintained his silence. That silence became louder than any speech could have been. It showed emotional intelligence, the ability to respond with wisdom instead of anger. Many who had once misunderstood his statement began to realize that Obi's calmness was not weakness. It was strength. True leadership is not measured by how fast one reacts, but by how wisely one speaks. Peter Obi had once said, "In leadership, you don't need to fight everyone. You just need to stay consistent. Time will separate noise from achievement." That philosophy guided his every move. By the time the dust settled, his message was clear to all. He was not trying to belittle anyone. He was simply reminding everyone that experience, integrity, and humility cannot be replaced by words or theory. A man's record speaks louder than his speeches. Peter Obi had drawn a boundary, not out of ego, but out of clarity. He had shown that respect can exist alongside firmness. And through that, he left an example for younger politicians who watched closely. The whole episode became a quiet reminder that political maturity is not about who wins an argument but about who maintains dignity in disagreement. And once again, Peter Obi had done exactly that. In the days that followed Peter Obi's response, a deeper meaning began to unfold. What seemed like a short political statement turned out to be a powerful lesson for Nigerian politics. It reminded everyone that politics does not have to be loud, abusive, or divisive. It can be intelligent, disciplined, and guided by truth. Peter Obi's calm but firm reply to Soludo was not just about who was right or wrong. It was about redefining how leaders should handle criticism. Instead of trading insults, he chose the path of maturity. Instead of shouting to be heard, he allowed facts to speak for him. His words had strength because they were backed by results. Many political figures and observers reflected on the entire incident and concluded that Obi's behavior showed the qualities of a true statesman. He did not see Soludo as an enemy, but as a fellow leader who might have lost sight of the bigger picture. Obi's ability to stay composed, even when publicly criticized, set an example that true leadership is not found in power or pride, but in character. When asked later about the reaction to his statement, Obi said, "There is no need to fight or argue. Leadership is not about who talks the most. It is about who delivers the most. I have always believed that results are louder than any speech." Those words summarized his entire philosophy of leadership. He wanted people to understand that a man's political value is not measured by how often he speaks, but by how much he has done for his people. His response also carried an important message for young Nigerians watching from afar. Many of them had grown tired of leaders who insult each other instead of solving problems. Obi's reply showed that politics can be done with calmness and class. It proved that you can defend your record without disrespecting others. Across many discussions and gatherings, the main lesson became clear: respect should be the foundation of political engagement. Every leader, no matter his position, must learn to speak with understanding, not arrogance. Obi's tone and words demonstrated that wisdom is stronger than anger. His message was not only directed at Soludo, but also to all politicians who think power means dominance. He showed that humility does not mean weakness, and calmness does not mean silence. It means control, the ability to rise above distractions and keep focus on what truly matters: service to the people. People who studied Peter Obi's leadership style noticed that he has always believed in results over rhetoric. During his time as governor, he managed public funds with care, ensured transparency, and refused to live extravagantly. He always said leadership should not be about personal comfort, but about the well-being of citizens. Those who remembered his record now understood why his words to Soludo carried so much power. It became clear that when Obi said, "We are not mates in politics," he was not boasting. He was making a statement of difference in values and priorities. For him, politics was about accountability. For many others, it had become a game of pride and position. That was the gap he was pointing out, a gap between politics of service and politics of self-interest. As the issue began to settle, even some critics quietly admitted that Obi's approach deserved respect. He could have chosen to respond with bitterness, but he did not. He preferred to educate rather than to insult. That attitude reflected not just emotional strength, but moral maturity. His reply also sparked a new conversation about leadership ethics in Nigeria. It reminded the public that disagreement does not always have to end in conflict. Two people can have different views and still maintain respect for each other. True progress, Obi believed, comes from focus and discipline, not noise and drama. In one of his closing remarks during a later event, he said, "I have learned that leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It is about being the one who acts with purpose. I do not compete with anyone. I simply do my best and let the results speak." That statement captured the essence of his reply to Soludo and the values he lived by. By the time everything cooled down, Peter Obi's simple statement had turned into a quiet political lesson. It reminded everyone that legacy is not built through argument but through integrity. It also showed that when a man's record is clean, he does not need to defend himself with anger. In the end, the event was no longer about who spoke first or who was right. It became a symbol of how politics should be done, with dignity, restraint, and focus on truth. And through that moment, Peter Obi once again showed that real strength in politics is not about volume, but about vision.